Okay, welcome again to another podcast. It's Melissa Hiemann here, the co-founder of the Center for Healing. And I am so excited to have a special guest on today. She was actually one of our hosts at our beautiful conference and retreat in Bali that we did back in 2024 at the Pyramids of Chi. And she gave us so much value to our participants, to our students from all over the world. And I just thought I need to get her on here to have a conversation because she's just a wealth of wisdom, and what she teaches is so complementary but slightly different to what we teach at the Center for Healing. So a warm welcome to Dr. Jyoti Schonfelder. She is a chiropractor, nervous system educator, author, and mind body alignment coach with over 2 decades of experience. She developed the Adjust Your Mind method, blending timeless principles with modern neuroscience to help practitioners and individuals seeking healing, regulating their nervous systems, shifting limiting patterns, and embodying their fullest potential. Jyoti lives in Bali with her husband, and her daughter is an artist and resides in London, and her son is an entrepreneur with his own clothing label, Nalu. Inspired by her own breakthrough in self-realization and nervous system transformation, Jyoti is passionate about guiding others on their growth journeys. While living in beautiful Bali, may I add, she works globally and in Singapore, integrating chiropractic care and personal development into a holistic approach. Through the Adjust Your Mind Academy, Jyoti mentors healthcare practitioners and individuals, offering neuroscience-based certification courses that transform trauma into growth, expand practices, and awaken purposeful transformation for the highest good of all of us. So with that long welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. That was really nice. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, of
Um,
course. And yeah, like I said, I love the way that you teach and your unique experience and your knowledge as well. And it's like I said, so complementary to what we do. So of course I wanted to get you on here to have a conversation because a lot of our listeners are practitioners and therapists and healers, and we are thirsty for knowledge in all things to support our clients. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got into this space?
yes, yes. So that was an interesting journey. It started really about 25 years ago when I met my husband in Australia. He was studying chiropractic at the time, and I'd never heard of chiropractic before because in Holland it's not so well known at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And well, he started to, share his passion with me. So he started to adjust my spine. I didn't really have anything, I would say, wrong with me at the time. I didn't have any like observable symptoms like back pain or neck pain or what you would generally go to a chiropractor for, or a healing or a health professional. But he just wanted to share his passion with me. And something quite remarkable happened after a series of adjustments. I had a complete shift of perception. So
Wow.
before I, and of course you don't know what you don't know, right? Because you
Yeah.
think that your life is okay because you kind of, we're such remarkable people. We just really adapt, and we live with what we have. So I thought my life was great, but then all of a sudden after regulating and toning my nervous system regularly, I had a complete shift of looking at the world from the outside in before, where I was kind of standing on the sidelines looking at the game of life. So I wasn't a participator in my own life because, of course, now I know my nervous system was in complete stress and was completely dysregulated from all the stored trauma that was in my nervous system. So I wasn't, my nervous system was not able to participate in life, right?
Do you feel like, and to put it in different words, and this is kind of my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really like you're living just for other people's validation and how they see you, like externally, like, oh, the world is happening to me, and you really care about what everyone else thinks rather than living your life inside your body and how you feel and what you think because you're in that survival state.
Yes, exactly. So it was really like there was nobody home.
Mm,
And I was kind of, I was in survival mode, but I didn't really know it at the time.
mm.
So after this adjustment, the first thing that I realized was that I started to be able to look people in the eye. And I
Wow.
realized before that, I actually never did that. It was really difficult to connect with myself, let alone with others.
Wow. That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
So all of a sudden, I was kind of playing the game of life. I was in life, right? And life was a lot better. And of course, I received continuous adjustments where I was regulating my nervous system at a regular basis. However, and this actually led to a really important, very pivotal experience where I was riding my motorbike on through the rice fields of Bali one day, one fine morning, and all of a sudden I had a really deep, profound awakening experience where I fully realized what I was and what we all are. And this experience, it happened really naturally. I always describe it as the fruit, the mango that was ripe, and it effortlessly just dropped into my lap. I wasn't
Wow.
looking for it. I
Mhm.
wasn't searching for it. It really just effortlessly happened because my nervous system was in a state at that moment that it was able to receive that information. So if you look at
Mm.
our brains are actually receivers of information, right?
Yeah, I love that. And something I teach in the manifesting course is that's the receiver, and the nervous system is like the aerial for the receiver.
It's
So,
the translator, right?
yeah.
Yes. Yes. And now we come to a really interesting topic because a lot of in my work, of course, I keep really true to chiropractic principles, and a lot of people don't know this about chiropractic. They just think it's fixing backs and necks, but there is a huge wealth of like there's a big philosophy that is foundational to chiropractic, and it's based on foundational and timeless principles. And one of the principles is that there is a universal intelligence, which is we can say in maybe day-to-day language, it's called the field. And Joe Dispenza touches upon that, and those terms are becoming a little bit more like common knowledge, where there is like I kind of see it as like a jelly like of information and intelligence that is available to everybody at all times. So it doesn't discriminate, it doesn't judge. It gives to everybody exactly the same. But how you receive that information depends on the state of your nervous system and the state of your brain, right? Because it's the
Yes.
receiver.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So when I started to tone my nervous system, and it's like toning an instrument almost, right? You fine tune your nervous system so you're able to receive that information and that energy from the field. So I was at that moment able to receive that information because I had a bigger kind of bandwidth almost, right? You're increasing some
Yes.
bandwidth.
Yeah,
So
because
I
I
was,
think when you're like in that survival state, you're all about surviving you as like a little human, and all you're worried about is like just, making sure you got food and water and your own little tiny life. But as you heal and you raise your vibration, and like you said, you open that window of capacity, all of a sudden it's about more than you, and you can actually access and download more information. The less you're in that survival state, the more, I guess, you go towards enlightenment. Or and the Buddha
absolutely.
would talk about it like, I think it's Buddhism or it might be Hinduism, and they talk about the hollow bone, maybe shamanism, it's one of those, the hollow bone. So you're actually opening up the pipe so things can come in. But we have to look at it
Absolutely.
from a neuroscience level of that in terms of like our nervous systems, don't we?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that is exactly what makes it so confusing often is that we have, sometimes I describe it like we have one part of us that walks to the right and the other part walks to the left. And the end result is you stay stuck because there is a part of you that is longing, deeply, deeply longing to fulfill itself. A part of you that wants to learn, that wants to grow, that wants to develop, that wants to connect, that wants to experience life and celebrate life, right? There's that part of us, that part of our true nature that is so deeply longing for that. And there is then the other part of us, which is also really fully okay and natural, that wants to keep us safe. And it's often the battle between those two parts, the incoherence between those two parts that make life such a struggle and that make us staying stuck where we are. And that's what I see a lot with the clients that I'm working with. It's there is this stuckness because you're unable to move forward and grow and expand. And ultimately, that's what we all love, right?
Mm. I like to look at I like that analogy that you have one part of us wants to go to the right, the other to the left, because I really look at the human body and the soul as they're intertwined, but they're separate entities in the fact that the human body is like an animal that is often in survival mode and it wants its comfort zone. It wants its, regular schedule. It just wants to be fed, sex, roof over their head, like the basic hierarchy of needs. And then our soul wants expansion, growth, new experiences, um, to, better relationships and all of this beautiful stuff. So I think having the awareness that there is this internal battle is can be an awakening in itself and so supportive to know in itself.
Yes, yes, and that's a great segue to where I wanted to, what actually was your original question, what brought me to this work was that after this profound realization that you are more than your body and more, there is this timeless essence that is always there and will always be there, and that we are all made of that same stuff, right? The same essence. I started to marinate into this experience for a long, long time. And but what I realized after like maybe 8 years or so into this experience, that my survival part actually encapsulated this experience and used it to. I was still stuck actually. So right, so this is how clever we are and how clever our mind is, because I realized, okay, I've got this realization. But I'm actually not doing anything with it. The action part was missing, right?
Mm,
And that's when I realized that I needed more. I needed more, not just the chiropractic care for me was not enough because my nervous system was so in survival. And you probably know it's like a dorsal state, the dorsal vagal state of complete shutdown is very familiar for me. And that stuck state, right? That hybrid between fight and flight and dorsal, which I kind of lived in that even after this realization. So that is
mm,
when I realized, okay, these patterns are so um, stubborn, and it's such a default pathway, and our survive pathway, I call it a survive and thrive pathway. Our survival pathways are so stubborn. I needed more. I needed more. And that's when I started to learn from a lot of other teachers and started to develop my own method to help, first of all, myself, of course, and then also help others, because I realized life is about action. Like we have a
mm,
body because we want to act out the love that we are. We don't just want to, first, we want to be it, and then we want to live it and act it out and experience it in the physical world. And that's what I'm about now. Like I'm about, yeah, bridging that, that gap.
I think that's so important because, yeah, even though we're called the Center for Healing, I really believe that you shouldn't just always just focus purely on healing, that you should, like you said, be taking action and like looking for your purpose, working towards your purpose. And those that are listening, a lot of you are facilitators, practitioners, and you're doing your purpose. But like really like taking action within that. And sometimes you will get dysregulated and it will trigger survival patterns. But then you do the healing work. But then don't forget about still creating and actioning and moving forward. Don't
Exactly.
just get stuck in doing the healing work constantly and that's all you do. You've got to use that bigger capacity. Okay, now let's create a different life and a different path and work towards that, or work towards what I really want, or whatever I'm downloading, or whatever I feel inspired by.
Exactly, exactly. And it's like I always picture like a mountain where you want to reach the top there, you know where you want to go, which is actually not so obvious. A lot of clients, and of course I work a lot with manifestation too, where where do you really want to go? What is your purpose? And what is it that you want that is coherent with your true self actually is not so obvious. Like I didn't know what I wanted, like nobody ever asked me what do I actually want. And of course I became the people pleaser to be really safe. I
Yeah.
completely forgot about myself. I completely forgot about my purpose and what I actually wanted. I just solely lived for others and to support others because I realized that kept me safe.
Mm,
Doing what other people want and supporting them, and which is the opposite of standing in my power. Like when I look back at times in my life when I did stand in my power and shared what I wanted, people didn't like that actually, especially maybe also as being a woman. I don't know
oh yes.
how you
And also
experience
like if
that.
you have the belief that people will get upset if you speak your truth, sometimes reality will confirm that evidence and that will reflect back to you, and then you'll be like, see, it wasn't a good idea, and then you don't do it again.
Yes.
I think I just wanted to touch on, sorry, before you continue, before we go too far away from it, just the question of what is your purpose. As some people listening might have not quite felt that. For me it was like a lightning bolt, like I just had this moment where I knew, and it took me 26 years, but I feel lucky that I found it. um but when my sister asked me, she's on that journey, so she's 26 now, and she asked me like, oh, how do you kind of work out what it is? And I said, well, I'll explain it to you how I explained it to my 6-year-old son, because he was asking why mummy and daddy are always reading books and like we love what we do. And I said, the thing is, you'll find what you like to do through action and trying different things. And you keep trying different things and you keep taking action, you keep going out of your comfort zone. And then you'll have a moment where you'll realize your purpose, or you'll know. So some of us, it was planted when we were little. I did have little flashes when I was little of what I'll be doing, but like you said, you get caught up on what everyone else thinks you should do and you get lost. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that before, because some people might be like, well, Jyoti, I don't know what my purpose is. Like, just keep trying different things. You'll find it on the journey, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it feels like there is different layers to that too. Like I would think, my I would say my foundational purpose would be to get to know myself on all
Mm,
different levels, because you get to know yourself by interacting with your external environment in a way. Because if you go a little, very deep, you are everything that you see and that you experience are actually aspects of yourself, right?
mm,
Um, and that's where like the nervous system comes in, because what you see and what you hear and what you experience in the physical world really all travels through sensory nerves, right?
yeah.
So by regulating your nervous system and your brain, you literally start to experience a different reality, because the information that you receive, it's all energy and vibration in a way that your brain translates into a smell or a touch or a sound, or right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it is, you're actually experiencing yourself through your external world.
Yeah. And that's
So
why when you
for
work
me,
on the filters that they're coming through, that
mm,
changes your perceptions, right? And changes,
everything.
yeah.
Everything, yeah, everything. So basically, your external world is like your feedback loop. Um, to get to know yourself, and I would say that would be probably my foundational purpose. And it's really true what you say. It's like by experiencing what you don't like, you learn what you like, right? So it's like about doing and experimenting. And that's where also the problem is often already so early on. When you look at our educational system, like we are
Mm.
not allowed to make mistakes. Like there is shame, there is guilt, there is all these, there's this kind of contraction and fear around experimenting and being curious and trying and doing, because we get shamed and we get told off by our teachers and our parents, and the whole educational system is not set up to make mistakes, and it's very competitive. So there is a huge contraction around action, right, in
Mm.
general, because you don't want to be wrong. You want to, yeah. So that's great that you have that conversation with your son already.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's one of the keys to the success that we've had. I've always had the mindset of taking imperfect action. And I did have to decondition and do a lot of healing around, yeah, like you said, like the school system. And so, being able to put something out there without, obviously doing the best that you can, but without it being perfect, to just get it out there, depending what
Exactly.
field you're in. Not, I'm not saying that as a brain surgeon you should do that, but when when you're more, in the creative or educational or therapy area, like you just it's kind of selfish if you just keep everything to yourself,
Yeah,
and it's going to come out imperfectly. And who are we to judge what's perfect or not anyway? Everyone
yeah,
has their own perception and the way that they're filtering their realities, like you said. So
yeah.
you're never going to be perfect in everyone's eyes.
No, no, and this is actually a really interesting when you talk about purpose, like, because I look at most of the things and everything that I teach through the nervous system, and like we always go towards homeostasis, like a state of balance, right? We are kind of seeking balance. It's something that we as humans do within our bodies, but I also believe that we do that in our longing, in our heart, and what we long for. So your vision and your purpose is often based on something that you've missed growing up.
Mm.
So your vision is based on a void. And this is where the problem starts, because every time, so you want something, you're longing for something that you have not experienced, or maybe you've missed growing up. Like in my case, for example, like I really long to show my true self and not hide it, like you say, and just be me when I'm alone, but that I'm able to be me with others, and even just sharing my voice and sharing my gifts and talents with the greater, with everybody, with the greater community, to raise consciousness and to help others, right? That's a real, like a longing for me, because I missed that growing up. Like, no, I grew up in that's a whole different story, but I grew up in a quite a chaotic household where there was not much room for for me. So I started to hide really early on and started to connect deeper with nature and animals, because I felt safe with them, but I didn't feel
Wow.
safe with humans. So my, what is my void? My void is something that I missed. So every time I take steps towards creating it, my nervous system blocks it because it starts to stand in front of me, because my nervous system goes back into the big database that your brain is, and go like, oh, hang on, I remember this. When she was 8, she was, sharing and speaking up, and that didn't go very well. So let's keep her safe, because that's my main focus. I'm going to block this attempt. I'm going to stand in front of her, and I'm going to make sure she stays safe. And this is fantastic, right? It's really great we have this. Thank you, nervous system. But now we need to speak to our nervous systems, and our nervous systems only listen through the body. It doesn't understand talk. It
Yeah.
doesn't understand, come on, this is, why are you anxious now? This is all like, really, it doesn't, it's like talking Chinese to your nervous system. We need to speak to it through the body. And then we need to regulate it so it stands next to us and supports us in our growth instead of in front of us. And that's a big part of the work I do, because it is, your nervous system will always block your attempt to growth and expansion because it has never been safe before, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so your purpose is directly the biggest, most challenging but needed healing journey that you will ever go on, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's the purpose. That's the purpose of it's so beautiful. Like, that's you're longing for something that you haven't experienced. You're taking steps towards it, and then your nervous system is blocking you. So this is your growth journey. This is the growth journey. And it's beautiful, but it's not effortless. So how you've got a young boy, so that development happens quite effortlessly and naturally when you are a child. However, at some stage it stops, right? Maybe 21 or somewhere in your 20s, your brain is kind of, I wouldn't say it's set in stone, because you can always change, of course, but that natural growth that children naturally go through kind of stops at some stage. And then we need to actually put effort in. And that's why it's so important to have a coach or to have somebody supporting you, because you can't do it alone. Really, I noticed that it's so important to have people, a support team helping you in this. If you're very serious about growth and expansion, it's very difficult to grow and develop as an adult, because it doesn't happen so naturally like we do as a child. You need to put effort in,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 100. And I think, a lot of our trauma is relational trauma, how we related to others growing up, and to unwind that, to have a coach that you feel safe with to help reframe that for your body and be in a relationship that is regulating and nourishing and healing, can unwind all of that, and then you can go forward and start to trust people and connect people and speak up, and so of course having someone that has great tools is also helpful as well, and knowledge, but yeah, just that relational healing in itself is incredible and so important, and that's why
Yeah.
you guys that are listening, your work is important.
It is important, isn't it? And because it is quite difficult. And I'm a quite a self-taught, like I do a lot of things myself, and I love working on myself. But it is that relation with somebody else that is so challenging. And it was for me too. It's like you said, it's always relational. The traumas are always relational. Um, and then there is the next step is groups, like working. That's why I love working in groups too, because that's, my nervous system doesn't like groups much, because
And
it
you're
was,
like, oh, this is the path.
yeah, exactly. And this is so interesting, because resistance, like the amount of resistance, and that's so beautiful, because I once read this book. It's called the War of Art, it's called. It's a bit of a funny title, by Stephen Pressfield. Have you heard of
I've
that book?
heard of that. Yes, super
Yeah.
popular.
And what they say is that the amount of resistance that you encounter is equal to the amount of love. So
Mm.
the more resistance that you actually encounter, the more you know you're on the right path. And was a real revelation for me when I heard that, because I was a little bit kind of before always thinking of kind of the hippie, go with the flow thing, where right, you just kind of go where it's easy. But often where it's easy, there is no learning and there's no growing in it, right? So
Yeah.
resistance is actually a good thing. So for all the listeners, if you're encountering resistance, know that you are actually on the right path.
Mm. And when we're talking about the path, I am getting these images in my mind of, literally there's a path, through this dense forest where there are trees and sticks and grasses like in the way of this path, but you know that there's a path there. You're not quite sure what's on the other side. But it's the same in our body with our neurological pathways, where, there's some resistance in our pathways, in our nervous system, that we need to work through. And like you so beautifully said at our conference last year, it's like there is gold on that path. If you can get through that resistance and heal like what is getting in the way of you walking that path, or go into the nervous system and heal, there is some wisdom and gold underneath there. And that really stuck with me when you shared that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely because I energy is the currency of the universe, right? So if you want to change, you actually do need energy.
Mm,
Because any change requires an upgrade of your nervous system, and that requires energy. And so, if you don't have the available energy in your system, in your nervous system, it's very difficult to change. And how we work, or how I work, is that I realize that within those what we call subluxations, which are areas of you that are your brain is not connected to, they're underlighted. Sub means under and lux means light. So those underlighted areas of you that have where you stored your trauma in your nervous system, they when you start to connect with those areas, you actually release a lot of potential energy. There
mm,
is a lot of stuck energy stored in those areas, those hidden areas in your nervous system. And by connecting with them, you actually release that, and then you can use that to upgrade. And that's what I see as little areas of gold stored in they're like energy sources, like gold is an energy source, right?
mm.
So those traumas are huge opportunities for growth and expansion, because they hold so much energy potential. And when that's released, you can actually upgrade and change.
That's so interesting because I know you just started studying root cause therapy, um, but in root cause therapy, we get people to kind of experience accessing their database of their memories, and they, imagine floating up above it, and they float over their timeline. And when someone is first experiencing this, there is often dark spots or clouds over their timeline. And then often, if we've gone into those, and I've even experienced this receiving sessions myself, and you release the heavy emotions and somatically like release that stress in the nervous system, all of a sudden it brightens up and we get all these learnings come through.
Yeah,
So that's like from a mental way, like to access it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and I would say because I just started with the course, and it's very interesting. And you link the body through the emotions as well, because often mostly trauma is very layered. So it starts with an energetic like contraction. It's like energy. You've got information, and of course it happens as a child mostly. You've got some sort of external information coming at your brain, and that your brain is not able to process at that moment, right?
Mm,
That's the start of it. So there is like like an energetic contraction. And often the next layer is emotional, of course, because emotions are meant for us to act. So it's energy, and then there is an emotion on top of that. And
Mhm.
then, of course, at some stage, you attach some sort of story or belief to
Yes.
that. And
Yeah.
then, of course, it becomes a story and your personal reality, and then it becomes your personality, right? It's
Wow.
kind
Yeah.
of all these layers of the trauma is like so layered. But when you look at the foundation of it, it's energy and emotion.
Mm.
And by releasing that, you also often release the limiting belief that's attached to that, and the story that is attached to that, and your
Yeah.
personal reality that is attached to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say the way that you explain things is like so complementary to what we do, because that's deep down our philosophy. So it's so nice to see
Yeah,
that, we both think the same in that sense in terms of healing and the potential. It's so
yeah,
aligned. Yeah, I love
yeah. I
it.
love it too. I love your work. I'm so inspired by what you do, and of course, everybody translates it in their own unique way. But eventually, it's all the same in a way. It comes from the same source. But because we're such unique beings, we all express it in our own unique way, right?
Absolutely. And so something that you touched on there was like how we create our personality through our through these traumas that happen with those stories. Could you link that to how we make decisions and the
Absolutely.
neuroscience of choice, as you call it?
Yes, yes. So I when you the word personality comes from persona, and that means mask in Greek, I
Oh,
think.
wow. Okay.
So your personality, I actually see it. Your personality is actually your compensation strategy to
Mm.
keep you safe.
Hmm.
When we look at the body, like people come to us as chiropractors with back pain, neck pain, some sort of physical discomfort, right?
Hmm.
And but really, you can say that that is a compensation layer, a compensation that is dysfunctional. So when you first compensate, you basically are avoiding pain, right? Because a
Yes.
compensation layer is also to always to avoid pain. So which is your protection mechanism, which is fantastic that we have it, right?
Mm.
It's so good we have it. But when this compensation strategy becomes chronic, and it
Mm.
sits there for years or decades, then it starts to work against itself. So a compensation is always starts, like I said before, with an energetic disruption. Then there is an emotion attached to it. Then it becomes a thought pattern. It becomes that whole bundle of compensation. And ultimately, you get physical pain too,
Mm.
right? Because that area that is disconnected from your brain starts to not flow anymore. There's no energy. It's like stuck. It's like, and then of course your muscles, your ligaments, and your nervous system tissue, everything on that bundle of compensation starts to become dysfunctional, right?
Mm.
But you can link this also to your personality. That also is a compensation. As much as a nervous system, as much as this trauma is stored in your body, it's also stored in your mind, and that becomes your personality, and that also becomes dysfunctional, right?
Mm.
You start to kind of get in your own way. You start to, so it works both ways, where your personality is not your true nature. It's not what you really are. It's really that thin layer of veneer that we are actually not most of the
And
time.
to continue that protection layer, do you think we make decisions from that personality and just keep recreating?
Absolutely. Yeah, the choices that we make, of course, are determine our reality. And
Mm.
of course they're based on the beliefs. And the beliefs create our reality as well. And when you're not aware of it, so to the main, I would say the foundational to my work is self-awareness and self-regulation. So the first step is to become aware of, from what state am I creating my reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
From what nervous system state am I creating my reality? And from what nervous system state am I making the choices and decisions every single day?
Yeah, because they create those patterns that don't serve us, and we're like, why does this keep happening to me? Or
Yeah,
those kind of
yeah,
questions can start to
exactly.
be answered because you're making decisions and creating from a place of protection that's not serving us anymore, might not be required anymore. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And often that physical dis-ease is also an invitation, because
Mm.
really, if you don't have, if you have physical pain, there is mental pain, of course, and that's both, but often they're linked as well. Like if you have some sort of mental, emotional pain, you might experience physical dis-ease as well. But it's really an invitation to say, hey, I need some help here.
Yeah,
Um,
that's really interesting because a part of the root cause therapy course, I do talk about physical issues, and I explain it like it's almost like that part of your body is screaming out, like, hey, you need to look at this. You need to
yes.
look at me. It is that call out to an invitation. And, often, with Western or mainstream, it's like, well, how do we cover it up? Take a Panadol or paracetamol and, rub something on it or whatever. Where we're not actually looking at, okay, what is the root cause here?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and of course you can do that for a little bit, but
Mm.
it's not sustainable. And um, yeah, ultimately, and this is also what I thought, and that was what made me want to do this work and develop this work, is that just going it through the physical, just removing, the subluxations physically, for me at least, it wasn't enough.
Mm.
Also, just going in it through the mind is also not enough. So it's like the
Yeah.
mind and body. That's why I'm like, actually blending the two is so important. It's actually chiropractic for the mind. So using the body and the mind, I think that is really the key to lasting transformation and lasting change.
Yeah. Oh, it's so amazing. Yeah, what you're doing. And yeah, that mind body connection is so powerful because if you work with them together, it's like you said, it's long lasting change. It's not just covering up or momentary relief. It's like
Oh,
real deep change. And, linking back to then you do get to gain the wisdom and the gold
yeah,
and the awareness, which, of course, you can stop something, but if you want to know why you're doing something, that's going to make it last so much longer. And just like you said earlier, like it's an opportunity rather
mm,
than, something that I have to work with. It's like
yeah,
you get to the point like, oh, I've got a trigger. Oh, I've got some resistance. That's exciting. Let's, work with that and see what's on the other side.
exactly.
It's quite more empowering, isn't it? Oh, well,
Yeah,
thank you. Is there,
and
yeah,
then
we're gonna start wrapping up, but is there
yeah.
any like main message that you'd like to send to the listeners, or something that you've been really wanting to share before we wrap it up?
Well, one thing that I, when you were sharing just now, what that is so important, and that's part of your work and my work too, is where that's the first step, is the healing in the body and the mind. But the second step is is linking it with your purpose, and linking it with really clear choices, like, where am I going? What's my true north? Where am I heading? And how am I doing that? And how am I regulating my nervous system every step on the way? That is like, it's the next step, if that makes sense. So it's not just about healing, it's about living that in the real world, and knowing where you're going and being of service to others as well. that
Oh,
is really important. Yeah.
so amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
If people want to find out more about your method or connect with you for a session, you did mention that you have a school membership and a YouTube channel, and we'll link those below. And also your amazing ebook that people can download for free. And there's the details on the last page there if they can find you. Could you just share where they could find you in case they don't have access to the show notes? Could you share how they could find you in the meantime?
Yeah, thank you. I would say the easiest way is just to go to adjustyourmind.com, because that's where everything is. You can that's like the yeah, all the information is there. You can join my membership or have a look at what I'm doing and connect with me, get my book.
Yeah, the book is incredible. We were so lucky to get a copy of that at the conference. And what is the membership about? What do they get if they come into that space with you?
The membership is they have access. So there's like twice a month, there's a group call. So there
Mhm.
is like an explanation and an experience aspect. So it runs on a theme. So I've got one theme per month that I first dive into, like more the theory of it. And of course, if you can't join live, you can watch the recordings. But then the second session is about really experiencing the work. And I noticed again, like I really like working in groups, and what comes up in a group is so different from working one-on-one. So this is an opportunity to share this work with others and do it with others, and realize that actually we're not so different. Like we're all the same. We all have similar problems, and it's a really safe learning community.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So if you're a practitioner or therapist and you want to learn more about Dr. Jyoti's work, or you might be someone that is just on the healing journey and it really resonated with you, then I implore you to go and check out the membership. And then if you feel comfortable, then you might want to work with her on a deeper level as well. So I just want to say thank you so much again for coming on. The information was just so profound but digestible for people to understand. And I think that last bit that you mentioned, we are all just people, whether we're therapists, whether we're counselors or healers, or whether we're, just someone that's interested in the healing journey. Um, we are just all on the same journey, and we share this information, and then it's better for the society, community, in the world, and it creates such a positive ripple effect. And we're all about lived experience at the Center for Healing. So your story is so powerful, and I think the more healing that you do, not saying that there's anything wrong with you, but the more you're willing to, like, when a resistance comes up, you're willing to work on that, the more that you'll be able to hold space for others, and then also share the wisdom with people that might be a step behind you. So yeah, thank you again so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you so much for
Thank
all the
you.
great work that you do. And I love you all. Really, really great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.